There are 3 key relationship triggers that every man must pull to become a world-class leader. Without these triggers, it's what causes divorces, it's what causes failures in business, it's what causes men to not operate at their potential. But with these triggers pulled, you're gonna have better relationships in your marriage, with your children, in your business or career. You're gonna be a world-class leader for the people around you. And the crazy thing is, most of us struggle with this, especially if you're a high-performing man who feels like people are just not on the same page as you. If you're constantly giving, and you feel like everyone else is taking, this will be a very powerful episode for you. We're gonna break down the judgment and comparison we do with others, and also the expectations we have of the people around us, and how to flip that on its head by reframing into a more powerful state. So if you wanna be a world-class leader, if you wanna improve your relationship or marriage, if you wanna be a better father, a better husband, if you wanna be a better leader of your teams and the people around you, this episode is extremely powerful. Make sure you take a bunch of notes and apply these 3 triggers right away. Welcome to the most important podcast you will ever listen to if you want to become a world-class leader. What does that mean? Leading your wife and kids, fixing a marriage, avoiding divorce, making sure your children are raised properly and can handle this fucking hard life, or leading the team in your business, leading people, basically making sure that everyone around you is on the very same page. Sam, have you ever had a moment in your life where you're trying your fucking best, you're showing up, you're eating well, exercising, trying to level up your partner, your child, the people around you, and you feel like you just can't rely on anyone and no one's on the same page? You can't rely on your wife, you can't rely on your son, you can't rely on your team, and you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? You throw your hands in the air and go, what's the fucking point? Has that happened to you before?
Absolutely. It has.
Yeah.
One of the
walk me through how.
yeah. There's been many times in my life where I've been inspired and I've been moving toward a certain direction, and I'm an all in or I'm all out kind of guy. There's not really a middle ground. And so, like, when I started my health journey, it was like, cool, we're getting the sups and we're getting the meal prep and we're just doing. I'm working out, I'm working hard, I'm going for it, I'm all in. And I'm inspired, and you get home from the gym and I feel fantastic. Yet my partner, my kid, hasn't had the same experience of me, and they've still got their challenges and their stuff going on. And it almost feels like you walk into this like pin pricking, like bursting your bubble.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm alone in this. But it raises those questions of, well, what am I expecting from that person? It's like, oh, that's support, but they're not on the same journey as me right now.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really frustrating, and you can feel very, very isolated. And, there's been periods of time in my life with doing that I've just allowed that to derail me.
Yeah. You don't realize it's happening. And then that's what we talked about in the previous episode about language and stories. It derails you. Listen to the language. So one of the hardest things for a high-performing man or father to go through is putting in time, energy, and effort to grow a business, provide for his family, and keep himself together while he's doing that, because it's fucking hard to be the man wearing all the hats, husband, father, business owner. And you put in the time, energy, and effort, and you walk through the door at home and you feel like you're not wanted, you're not appreciated, you're not desired. You come home and you try and put on that brave face and that smile, and even though you're fucking internally struggling, the people at home just berate you. You and your wife get into an argument, your kids are playing up. It is exhausting. And there is a very simple formula to fix it, and it is taking responsibility and leadership, leading your family, not telling them what to do, not expecting them to change, leading them by adding massive value. When you can do that, you win in every area of your life. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And why is this podcast happening? Because one of the biggest things that men go through is unmet expectations from others. As a high performer, you're going to experience this. You're going to grind, you're going to hustle, and you're going to notice that the people around you just don't show up the same way. And it is extremely frustrating and triggering. And this is where we get really upset and angry, and we take it out on them and we blow up like a ticking time bomb. Or what we do is we bottle it right on up, and it festers and it grows. This happened to me the other day, Sam. It's a little bit of a different frame, but there's a yapping dog next to us that just goes every fucking night.
Yeah.
So I've been hearing that for months. And I wake up and I just think, I'm going to kill the dog. I have all these negative thoughts. The other night I got up and I went to go take a piss, and full naked, cupped my dick in my balls, walked downstairs, walked outside into the middle of the road, fog everywhere at 11:45 p.m. at night. And I looked around and I'm like, where the fuck is this thing? And I turned to it and I was like, shut your fucking dog up. And then I went back upstairs and I fell asleep. The dog has not barked in 4 days. So that's an example of letting things build up, right? We let things build up in our relationship. We do this with our employees. We do this with our friends and family instead of addressing things. So there are three relationship triggers you must pull to become a world-class leader. And before we share them with you, we get to understand the first principle here, and that is that relationships are simply transactions. So we have clients who pay us anywhere from $37 to $48,000 for our services. And we add, we have guys who pay us 48 grand, make 4.8 million. So it's a great ROI. But anyway, what they're doing is they're giving us a investment of their money and their time and their energy, and they are receiving a transaction in that exchange, right? So the reason you buy anything in your life is because you are transacting and you feel like there's enough value in that transaction to part with money. That's what money is. Like if you want teeth whitening, we have a guy in our program who spent 30 grand on a hair transplant. You see the value in something and then you transact for that thing. Relationships are exactly the same, and they don't necessarily have to have money attached to that transaction. It's a transaction of love. When our partner marries us, we are constantly transacting with love languages, with communication, with how we make each other feel. Rosie, my wife, is in Sydney right now. It's the second day she's gone. I miss her. I really miss her. That's a transaction. She adds so much value to me. And I was thinking during my breath work this morning about her smile. So speaking of this, this is what happened this week. Rosie was really stressed. Now we've built the team to 9 team members at Empowered Man. We just hired 2 more today, so it's 11. And I've been grinding my ass off in the business. It's hard. I worked 49 days in a row, had a mini break. And I went downstairs this week and there were 2 days where Rosie was just so fucking stressed. Like she was so stressed. She was just like yelling at Talia and fucking, Ugh! And the second day I went downstairs and she just broke down. She's like, I can't do this. It's like, it's so fucking hard. And I wanted to grab her because I see so much potential in my wife and everyone around me. And that's what leaders do, right? And I want to grab her and just shake her and go, you're so much stronger. I just need you to be stronger. Because when she shows up that way, it makes my life more challenging. And this is where the first trigger you must pull comes in. And that is the trigger of judgment, right? I started judging my wife because I created a comparison of who I think she should be compared to who she is now. And I created a comparison with who I am and how I would handle things and how she's showing up. In your life as a man, especially a high performer, with all the stress and weight of the world on your shoulders, you're going to feel a lot of comparison towards where you think someone should be and where they are, and where you are and where they are. Why do we do this as men, Sam? Why do we compare everyone around us to who we are and who we think they should be?
As men, we are, and I'm using general global language, we are visionaries. We see what could be. And, a lot of us are quick to pull the trigger and cast out. There's been many times where I've been in executive roles, leadership roles in corporate organizations where, I've had someone come and join me and I'm like, cool, this is what we're doing. This is what I want you to do. You explain it. And then you're like, you see that then they're falling short of that. And it's like, come on, like it's not hard. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
You compare them to where I think they should be. I compare them to where other people have been in the past. And then as a result, I judge them. But in reflection, I haven't set them up to win, because if they don't understand or they're not clear, then that falls back on me as a leader, which I think we'll talk about later on. But it's very easy to get stuck in that you should be, listen to the language, you should be where I think you should be. But as men, I think, we're wired to see potential. We're wired to cast vision. We're wired to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And when that's not coming to fruition in the way that we believe it should,
Mm-hmm.
then we go down that road of judgment and comparing, and it's unhealthy, but we get stuck in it. And it comes from a good place, but it's not a place that is navigated step by step. We can quickly go, this is what I want. You should be here by now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's rapid fire.
You rapid
Because
fire.
as a high performing man, you have expectations that things just get done. Like you have a problem, you're just like, what's the fastest way to a solution?
Yeah.
A good example of this is typically with women. Again, this is generalization. What women will do is they'll go, I'm hungry. Whereas men will go, what do I want to eat right now? Let's go get it. My wife does. She's like, I'm hungry. I'm like, go to the fucking fridge. And this is generalizations. Not all women are like this, but I've noticed with my wife and from what I've heard from our clients, it's very, so there is already not a biological, but there is a conditioning with children, with women, with employees, where they don't operate at your level. They're not going to, they can't, right? And this is why divorces happen, because we expect things from our partner and we judge the fuck out of them. And we think by judging them and comparing them and wanting them to be better, that's going to get us the outcome, which it doesn't. It makes things worse because that judgment turns into anger, frustration, arguments, all these things that fuck us up as men. Really quick caveat. If you listen to any of this and you're getting value, after this episode, go to the previous one if you haven't listened. It was all about language. And last episode is probably the best one we've ever done. And this one's going to be even better, like it already is, right? So we have this judgment. Let's break down 3 areas it can happen. It can happen with your wife or your partner. You come home, the house is a mess. You compare yourself with them. You go, if I was home, I would have fucking done the dishes. So it's all about you. It's a first place conversation. It's all about you. I would have done this. I would have done that. And you compare them to who you are. Now, as a high performer, most people aren't going to operate at your level. That's why they don't run businesses. That's why they don't have 20 staff. So we get to accept that. The second piece of judgment is we compare them to who we think they should be, which when you think about it is so fucking unfair. In a relationship, especially because we love someone, we feel like we have the right to now dictate how they operate, especially in marriages. It's crazy. Same with our children. Our children are playing up, they're acting up. We compare them with who we think they should be as a child. We forget how we were. We forget how we were raised, right? So all of this is an awareness piece. And then the third one is employees. I've done this with you up until recently, and I still do it with some of my team. They fuck something up and I'm like, I would have done it better. This is what most business owners do. They go back into the weeds of the business and they do it themselves. Yeah. Right? Instead of training that person, which we'll get to. So you can see how it applies to employees or staff. You can see how it applies to children and see how it applies to the partner. So comparison creates judgment. The way that we shift this, the trigger that we pull around judgment to become a world-class leader is we change that comparison and judgment to understanding and acceptance. If you are in a relationship with your partner, your children, your team or staff, if you're running a business or trying to grow big things and you're comparing someone to who you think they should be or to who you are and you would do it better, you get to change that to acceptance and understanding. You're not okay with how they're showing up if they're not showing up well, but you go, I can't understand why they can't just figure it out. I told my team member what to do. They haven't done it. My wife won't listen. Cool. Instead of saying, I don't know why they don't do that, go, how could they be thinking? What could be going through their head? How could they be operating so I can understand them and accept not what they've done wrong, but accept that they're doing the best with what they've got. Your employees, your partner, your kids, they don't intentionally piss you off. They do it because they don't know what they're doing. They don't have coaches. They don't have mentors. They're not at your level. So how would somebody go about, because this will go over a lot of heads. You're comparing people, you're judging them. How do you as a man go, okay, cool. How do I understand and accept why that employee fucked that up? Or how do I understand and accept why my children are acting up? Or how do I understand and accept why my wife once a month is stressed and triggered for some weird reason? Like, how do we understand and accept these things?
What we get to do to move from comparison and judgment to acceptance and understanding is the zoom out. You zoom out and you get, because we have our big picture of what things should look like, how people should be operating. But when we zoom out even further and get the big picture, okay, she's stressed about, this is how my partner's wired, or this is how that person's been trained in the past, or this is the experience that, my employee has had in the past. And, all that, and you get the bigger picture of what's actually going on and what the person might be carrying or how they've been developed. I mean, there were so many times early on when I was working with you where you would, talk to me about something, and then I would be in fear of my job, not because of anything you did or said, but because of how I was conditioned in the past.
Yeah. Like, am I going to fail? Am I going to get fired? Exactly. Which is also something that the leader gets to take responsibility for. Because like if you tell someone what to do and they don't do it, you get triggered at them instead of looking inward and going, cool, well, how can I understand why they didn't do it? Maybe I didn't explain it very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my wife is such a bitch. She does this. She yells when I get home. She judges me, blah, blah. Okay, but you've allowed that to happen for 20 years. So can you understand why it's happening? So it's understanding and acceptance really it's about looking at it from a different perspective, using different language. Oh, I just don't get it. I don't understand how he's that dumb. Well, could you understand? How could you understand? How could you accept what's happening? Not accept that it's okay. It's not okay, but how can you accept that it's happened, that it's going to happen, and understand that person and understand yourself to a degree where you're no longer comparing them. You're actually seeing potential in them in a positive way instead of a negative way.
Yeah.
Right?
When you do that though, you understand. I'm going to mark this because I think it's going to be gold.
Yeah.
When you get to that place of acceptance and understanding, if you take it a step further, which I think we'll dive into later, it gives you a framework to train them, because you're not then going, you need to fit into my worldview and you need to do things how I do them. And why can't you just understand the way that I'm training you and the way that I'm, what I'm expecting of you? And then it's going into their world and going, how do they operate? How have they operated in the past? And then you start to realize where you're picking up from.
Exactly.
And then you've got a framework to train. Yeah.
Hey, legend, if you're getting value from this podcast, then you're going to love our Empowered Man 7-Day Challenge. Inside, we've taken some of the best content our clients invest thousands of dollars for to change their lives, and we've given it to you in the course of 7 days. This challenge is worth over $3,000, and you can get it for $37, 97% off. Inside, we'll teach you how to fix your marriage and relationships and reconnect with your partner, your kids, your wife. We will teach you how to take back your time, how to take back your power, get into powerful routines, and how to take control of your life, take control of your mind, take control of your business, take control of your health, take control of your wealth. Sounds too good to be true, but there's a complete money back guarantee. So if you're enjoying this podcast, go to elitebusinessman.com/challenge. That's elitebusinessman.com/challenge. It's going to be in the call notes as well, and you'll be able to register for this challenge that will completely change your life. Do you know what came up for me there is like, when you're driving a car and one of the emergency lights comes on, it tells you where the problem is so you can diagnose it. Whereas what we tend to do as men, especially high performers, is this comparison and judgment, especially to ourselves. Like, I would have done it better. It's like driving a car and you're just driving and that light doesn't come on so you can't see the problem. It's not the car's fault. It's not your fault. The cars just break over time. So things break in your relationships, whether you're arguing, your team aren't showing up, they're not following instructions, your kids are acting up. You need warning signs. And the way you do that is you search for them. Now, this isn't about not going into comparison and judgment. You're going to do this. It's part of what makes you successful, but it's about when it happens, acknowledging it and going, holy shit, that thing's happening again. So how can I understand myself and the person I'm trying to work with? How can I accept that it's happened? And how can I move forward? Which leads to the second trigger that every man must pull, every father must pull to be a world-class leader for his wife, his kids, his employees, and that is expectations. Like they go hand in hand, right? If you want to be successful as a father, as a business owner, as a husband, as a man, you're clearly a high performer because you're chasing success. You want more. Your job is expansion. You want to make money. You want to provide. You want to be a leader. What happens though is you start expecting everyone else to do that exact same thing. You expect your wife, you expect your kids, you expect your employees to operate at your level. Now, if they were operating at your level, they'd probably be married to someone else, or they'd probably be working and running their own business, right? We have these expectations of people that are attached to comparison and judgment. And so often these expectations are unfair and unrealistic.
Yeah.
Now, when you set expectations of other people, you are doomed for disappointment because we cannot control anyone. So if you can change those expectations to desires and empower that person in your relationships to become better, you win the game. So
Yeah.
how would you, because we know we got to add value and we'll get into like how we turn expectations into something else. How do you shift expectations? Because it's hard. Like we expect a lot as men. How do you mitigate that? How do you work on that? How do we do it in our program and with our clients?
Expectation for me, what comes up for me when I think of expectations is it's like you're trying to pull someone into your worldview, and look, there's space for that. What comes up for me is I used to go to conferences or retreats with you and things like that, and come home and I'm inspired and I'm so excited, and this is the expectation for my family from now on. But I would neglect to realize that my ex-wife wasn't with me. She hasn't had the same experience as I have.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like coming and going, what the hell are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean we're doing this now? What do you mean we're eating this way now? What do you mean we're, doing this in our relationship now? Because I'm just putting this expectation, which is often unrealistic. And I'm not inviting them on the journey. I'm just going, this is the way we're doing it now.
Yeah.
And that's an incredible way of getting people offside really fast.
Yeah,
Is
man.
to go in with your unrealistic expectations. We're changing the world from now, and this is the line in the sand. And
Yeah.
there's so many of the guys that we've worked with, past and current, and they get inspired from a coaching call or something like that, and they go too hard too fast, and this is the expectation of our family now, and their wives are like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You've been like the same way for 20 years, and in 10 minutes, like,
Yeah.
what's
What's
going
changed? Yeah.
on?
And we expect it from everyone. Like we expect our team to do more work and put in more hours. We expect our partner to not be upset when we get home late. We expect her to just give us sex whenever we want it. We expect our children to be good and not make a mess and not fucking, drain our energy at the end of the day. When you think about it, all these expectations are extremely unfair.
Mm.
And the only way you can realize these expectations are unfair is by acknowledging that. Like if you're listening to this right now, just think about it. What do you expect from your partner? What do you expect from your children? What do you expect from your teams, your employees, your staff? What do you expect from people? And just ask yourself, like, is that fair? Now, a lot of men will go, yeah, it is. Like, of course my team should work hard. I agree. But let's pull it back to what I said at the beginning. Relationships are transactional. Relationships are transactional. So if you want to make more money, if you want to have a better marriage, if you want to be a better father and husband, if you want to be a leader, you can expect the people around you to meet those needs, to pay you money, to give you sex if it's your wife, to listen to you if it's your employees or kids. You can expect that. But if you expect things, you can't control people. They're not at the same level as you. You won't get those expectations met. What you do instead of expectation is you add massive fucking value to that person. When you add value to someone, there's a transaction that happens and they feel that value from you and they start to get internally inspired to be better. But what do most of us do? We tell them. So we compare them to who we think they should be. We compare them to who we are and we think they're not good enough. Then we judge them for that. And the outcome that we want is for them to be better. You come home, the house is a mess. The outcome you want is your wife to be able to be calm and patient and clean the house and look after the kids, or to be loving when you come home. That's the expectation. That doesn't happen. You get angry, you judge. And then the result of that is the reaction. Yelling, getting angry, blaming them, which actually, when you think about it, takes you way further from the outcome.
It does.
It's crazy. Like when you say it like that, it blows your fucking mind. So if the transaction is happening, now you're transacting in a deficit. You're adding negative value. You're getting angry, triggered, because in your mind, by default, you're like, they should now listen, and you tell them what to do. Your team member fucks up, you're like, you fucked up. Your wife's upset, you say, you're a bitch, I can't fucking do this. Your kids act up, you're like, act your age, even though they're like 5. So the trigger you pull here, the first one is judgment and comparison into understanding and acceptance. The second trigger here is expectations. Sweep them to the side. You're allowed to want them to be better. You're allowed to want things, but ask yourself, cool, after I understand and accept them, how can I add massive value to this person? How can I add so much value to this person in this relationship by being a better leader? How can I calmly and patiently guide them, listen to them, find out what's going on for them, empower them? I did this with Sam. So Sam, I've spent 15 grand on Sam to do a course with a good mate of mine, because I was like, as a leader, I'm not going to be able to coach my team and run my team. I'm going to outsource that. And since I did that, it might be a correlation. Sam's productivity, his commitment to the business, he's working longer hours. He, not that you've never done that, but you had a hard cap on your hours up until recently. He's working later because I stopped expecting him to be better. And I was like, cool, like Sam's doing the best with what he's got. So why don't I just invest in him, add him massive value? And he messaged me on a Sunday and you were like, dude, I can't believe how much you've invested in me. That's adding value. I didn't do it with the expectation of him giving me anything. I didn't expect him to give me anything. But ironically enough, I removed the expectation, I add value, and Sam's like, I'm fucking all in, bro. This is how relationships work. And as a leader, you don't have to buy stuff for people. You got to ask yourself in your relationships, what am I expecting from my team, my kids, my partner? And how do I remove those expectations and add so much value to now lead that person to give me the outcome? Does that make sense?
Really
So let's run through some examples of this. Like, how would you do this in a marriage or a relationship? Your partner is not giving you sex. You don't feel appreciated. You don't feel respected. You're judging, you're comparing. You understand and accept that they're doing the best what they got, etc. But you still expect it from them. How would you do it in your marriage with your partner? How do we do it with our clients?
I had another example in my head, so I was
That's okay.
in another world. But in terms of that with a partner, sorry, can you frame the question again?
So if we expect our partner to give us sex, we expect them to make us feel loved, to just fucking say good job, pat on the back, and they don't do that. So then we judge and compare them. If we were to like still want those things, how would we add value to get them with the expectation of not getting them? Because this is the thing. It's like, it's not like I'm going to add value. Now give me sex. No. How do you add value? Like, how do you add value in a relationship? What can you do with a partner or in a marriage?
You become intentional and you love them and you invest in them with no expectation of getting anything back, but you simply show up. You start, one of the best things we can start doing in a relationship is start showing up as our best self, showing up to support, showing up to meet, their love language. For me, when I was in a relationship, there was nothing greater for me than to see my partner feeling loved and how she operated on a whole other level when she felt loved and seen. The byproduct of that was me feeling loved and seen in return. But that wasn't the reason I did it. It was going back to the vision for my relationship is that we're this and I can invest intentionally this way. I can't make her invest. I can't make anyone invest in me, but I can invest.
Yeah. Invest time, energy, effort into that person. Right. What were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off.
I was just going to say a great example with my son. This morning, I took him to school and he's got his first sports day. He's been at school for 5 weeks and, he's in the blue team and on the way to school, he just burst into tears. He's like, I want to be in the red team. I don't want to be blue. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm not doing it. I'm not racing. I'm not running the 50 meters. I'm not doing it. And we got to school and I realized like I can do two things here. I can stand over him and say, you will do this. You will participate and you will enjoy it. What's that going to give me? Or this is what I did with him at school this morning. We got there. I got down on his level. So I stopped from this place of expectation, unrealistic expectation for a 5-year-old. And I got down on his level to lead him. And I pointed over at the oval and I said, that's where you're going to run today. And you're going to practice some of those affirmations that we do at bedtime. You can say, I'm strong and I'm powerful and I'm confident. And when they say ready, set, go, you're just going to run and you're going to give your best and you're going to run over to that spot and it's going to be awesome. And you just started to see his demeanor change. It was like, because what I did was I didn't talk over him and just cast the expectation, but I led him. I got down on his level and I helped him see what could be if he just had a go. And I added value.
Leadership, we think leadership is telling people what to do. That's not leadership.
No.
leadership for a man, for a father, for a husband, for a business owner, leadership is simply one thing, and that's adding value so that somebody can empower themselves.
Mm.
So if you have a team or an employee who's not working and you blame them, you're like, they could have done it better, they should have done it better. You go, cool, how can I empower them to make better decisions? I expect them to be better. How can I cast those expectations aside and add massive value as a leader to make sure they're okay, to give them the right tools, to give them a checklist? My wife's not meeting my needs. I expect her to give me sex, to give me love and appreciation. I'm not getting it. I'm judging her for that. Instead of expecting that, how can I make her feel loved? How can I add value to this relationship? Give her time, affection, energy, gifts. Your children are acting up. How can I give them more leadership? It's about giving with the expectation of nothing in return. And that's how you add value and lead. Leadership isn't telling someone what to do. You should have done better. You fucked that up. It's like, cool. How can we help you? How can we add value to you so you become a more powerful person? That's power. Now, the challenge with this is when, and this is the third and final trigger, we might as well jump into it. The third and final trigger you must pull to be a world-class leader is internal motivation versus external motivation. And I'll even change it to internal inspiration, right? Sam, yes or no? In the last 6 months, the way that I've showed up in the business, and Sam's getting paid for this, so don't worry, guys. And the way that I've showed up and how hard I've worked and how much blood, sweat, and tears I've put in, how inspired has that made you?
Incredibly inspired, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Because I see the vision.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell you the vision. You saw me doing it, and it created your own internal inspiration. You're not motivated by Toni. You're motivated within yourself because of the leadership you saw. Now, how I used to lead in the past was I would like coach someone, like, let's work on your finances. Let's fix this. Let's fix this. And like now they're relying on me to hold their hand. Whereas now it's a different story. It's getting somebody, when you add that value, so you remove comparison and judgment and you have understanding and acceptance, you then go from expectation to adding massive value. And when you do that enough times, you empower that person to become like you. If you're a high performer, if you're not, you've got to do this as well. But that's when people start leading other people and themselves. And that's when you've got it. That's when you've really got it.
Yeah.
So expectations and adding value, they're extremely linked. You're allowed to want people to be better, but you've got to add the value first. So there are caveats to this. Let's say you have an employee and he's not fucking performing. So you judge him and you compare him. You turn that into understanding and acceptance. Cool. So I didn't really onboard them very well. I didn't ask them if they were clear and to repeat it back to me. They haven't got a checklist to follow. They might have problems at home. I expect them to perform, to do what I say. Okay, how can I add value? Can I book training with them? Can I pay for a coach for them? Can I give them a week off? You start reframing the value. And the final question here is like, cool, if they don't perform after all those things, then you get rid of them. But too often we fuck up our relationships because we don't do those things first. And that causes us to break them down. We have a client on Wednesday. He was at one of our mastermind calls. It's our program. There's 41 guys in there. Between them, they make about $200 million a year. So it's very successful guys. And one of the guys is on the call and he goes, fuck, everything's going well. Business is going well. Health's on fire. But I don't know if I can do this with my wife anymore, man. She's just not putting in any effort. She's doing literally nothing to fucking work on the relationship. So I'm like, cool, man. So it sounds like you're comparing her to where you think she should be. You think she's down here. She should be up here. And you're also comparing her to yourself because you're talking about how hard you're working and how you're getting fit and how you're crushing it. So now there's comparison on both sides. I said, first thing, language, last week's podcast. I'm like, brother, is she doing nothing or has there been one thing that she's done? And he goes, of course she has. I'm like, cool, what is it? And he says, the second thing. I'm like, cool. So she's done nothing except two things. And he goes, I see what you're doing here. I said, exactly. So when you say she's doing nothing, you're lying to yourself. You're comparing something to bullshit. Secondly, have you actually asked yourself, has she done coaching? Is she a high performer? Does she have the tools to achieve any of this? He goes, probably not. Instantly asking those questions and giving those answers, it instantly shifts the story and the comparison. It's a lot harder to compare and judge when you ask those questions.
Yeah.
Then I go, cool, how can we add value? And I said, cool, man, looking at you as a leader, let's say communication 0 is like you're a caveman and you can't fucking speak. And 10 is you can influence people. You got the tonality right. You communicate so well that people just bend to your will. Where are you on the communication scale? And he goes, a 5. And I'm like, cool. So you expect her to give you all these things, and you're comparing her to all the shit you've done. You're trying to fix the marriage. You're a 5. Do you think it's fair to expect her to give you what you want when you're a 5? And he goes, no. And I'm like, exactly. So how can you add value to her and empower her to level up without telling her what to do? And he's like, that's a really good question. This is the power of what we do. It's like, and by the way, I'd love to know from the listeners, if you're listening to this, flick us an email at support@empoweredmanmethod.com, or drop a comment down below on the podcast platform if you can even do that, or YouTube. If you've listened to this and it all makes sense, because it should, but you're like, fuck, this is fire. How do I implement it? How many men would listen to this and go, this is great, but like, how the fuck do I implement it? It takes time. It takes having a plan. It takes having education and accountability, which is what we do in the Empowered Man program. Next week's episode is going to be episode 50. It's going to be all about that program and how you can join it. But if you've listened to anything so far, understand that it doesn't take long. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to fix these things and to become a world-class leader. So step 1, the first trigger you got to pull is, well, before we go into that, the principle behind all this, relationships are transactional. If you're not getting the outcome you want, I'm going to mark this. Relationships are transactional. If you're not getting the outcome you want in your marriage, it's breaking down on the brink of divorce. If your employees or staff aren't performing, if your children are acting up, it simply means that you are not adding enough value. You are not transacting. You're not transacting enough value with that person for them to be inspired by you to become better. It's that simple. Take fucking ownership. First principle, first trigger you got to pull, comparison and judgment, we turn that into acceptance and understanding. Expectations, we turn into leadership and adding massive value. And then the third trigger is empowering someone, which takes time, to from being externally motivated to internally inspired. And the way you do that is by how you show up. This is the hardest thing on the planet to do as a man, is to accept that if there's any relationship in your life that's not working, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it. And when you take that radical ownership, it's a heavy fucking burden, but it also means that you're in control. No one can affect you. Nothing can affect you. And that's when you're unfuckwithable and limitless. This is also how your business grows, how you make more money, how you have financial freedom, how you have a great relationship full of intimacy and sex, how you lead your children. It all comes back to these 3 triggers. So Sam, anything you want to add, any golden nuggets in regards to this amazing topic of relationships and transactions?
Yeah, just finally around internal inspiration versus external motivation. Any form of motivation it's fickle. Like, it's here today, it's gone tomorrow. Like, it's fleeting. Like, it changes like the weather. When we are internally inspired, now for me that comes through vision, through having a vision, through being part of a vision. I know when Toni sends a voice message in our Dream Team channel on a Monday or a Friday and casts the vision, I'm like, let's go, because I'm jumping on board the vision. It's not this is what I expect. It's the vision. He's sharing the vision. I've been in a room with staff that I've managed many, many times where I've said, this is what I need you to do. I expect this, I expect that, I expect this, I expect that. And I'm constantly chasing the results. I'm chasing people to step up and be where I believe they should be.
Yeah.
When I've changed that and I've gone to, this is what I see. This is what I see for us. I see us influencing thousands. I see us doing this. I see us and casting the vision.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people jump on board with that, because it's clarity. That's all.
It is, man. It's leadership. Leadership is vision, but we throw that vision at people instead of taking them on the journey. And we do that because we compare, we judge, we expect. And every man who's listened this far goes, fuck, that's me. And it used to be me too.
Yeah.
And there are moments where it still is. When I talked about shaking Rosie, I probably shouldn't say that, but I felt triggered. I felt stressed. I felt angry. I felt judgmental. I compared her. I expected. But with the tools we teach in Empowered Man, I was able to shift that in 5 minutes. And that's how we created this content. That's the awesome part of this journey of being a leader. Like, your marriage, your business, your relationships, they're all affected by you. And that's beautiful, because when you start winning and leading well, everyone around you comes on the fucking journey. You influence them to become better, and it feels fucking amazing.
Mm.
If our goal as a man is expansion, right? When you expand and other people expand because of you, it becomes this epic fucking infinite game, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And that's what I do every day, man. I add value to my team, to my staff, to my wife, to my kids, to random people in the sauna. If you can be that guy who removes expectation, judgment, and comparison, it will come up, but you acknowledge it, you work through it, you will fucking win. So if you've listened this far and you're a man, a business owner, husband, father, or a career-driven man, we work with those too, and you want to be a better leader, you want to fix your marriage, find work-life balance, connect with your children, and grow your business or wealth without sacrificing your health, your happiness, or your family, then go down below and you'll be able to find 2 links. One will take you to a $37 challenge. It's basically like a pre-frame so you can join our main program, or there'll be a link to book a call with our team directly where you'll be able to speak to me or my team, and we'll craft a 1-hour roadmap for you on how to achieve everything we said here and more so you can have it all in your health, wealth, and relationships. But don't be one of the guys who listens and goes, that was amazing, and does nothing. Take some fucking action. So if you want to be a better man, go down below, apply for a call with the team, and we'll see you for the next episode of the Empowered Man podcast. Hey, brother, I hope you got a ton of value from that podcast. If you would like to work with us personally and get some of the best content we've launched for our clients who have invested thousands of dollars, then go and complete our 7-day Empowered Man Challenge. This mission will completely transform your life. If it doesn't, you won't have to pay a cent. It's only $37, and it is game-changing if you want to take back control. So if you want to find balance between business, family, and life, if you want the relationship, the health, the wealth that you deserve, then go to elitebusinessman.com/challenge. That's elitebusinessman.com/challenge, and take up this challenge to take back control of your life.